The guy asked the princess if she believed in love. She made a surprised face and answered the question with a question, wondering if he's drunk. Kirona was the first princess of the Mahatha's empire. The girl reminded him that there was a punishment for drinking alcohol while on duty, and she began to threaten to report him to Marona. The guy replied that there was nothing to scare the head of the knights, the one who does not even obey the princess. It was Kirona's personal knight, Jade Eclipse. The girl made a terrible grimace on her face. I was surprised at his audacity that he was aware of his disobedience to the imperial person openly and did not repent. The guy retorted that she said she loved his impudence. Jade insisted that he was not drunk. Moreover, he assured that he had never drank alcohol in his life. The girl made a thoughtful face. The princess noticed that the guy was acting a little strange today. What if James Eclipse himself suddenly asks if she believes in love? Kirona asked the knight mockingly if he was thinking of getting married. He was indignant at her assumption. The guy held the girl by the shoulders, blocking her sharp attacks. I asked her not to make such movements because you need to be more careful when your stomach is not empty. She asked not to talk about the child as if he had eaten lunch. James asked him to forgive him for not being able to remember the word pregnancy. He asked when he told her about his decision to get married. The girl said that she thought it because of his question. She reminded him that he would turn 22 this year, the best age to start a family. In the Mahatha's empire, on its lands where the events we described unfold, matriarchy reigned. According to local law, a man must either be officially recognized as the biological father of the child, or get married in order to join, albeit with difficulty, your wife's family. The girl recalled what he told her, that recently young knights are increasingly dreaming of getting married or becoming the father of a child. The guy asked why their conversation even went in such a direction, and he still asked the girl to answer his question directly. The princess thought about it. Then she replied that she considered belief in love to be sheer nonsense. She said that he himself knows that this is not typical for her, that he himself constantly insisted that he did not believe in love. Jade said that he still believes in love. His face glowed and his gaze was dreamy. Kirona started yelling at him. After all, before he said something completely different, but the guy assured that everything is different now. The girl asked what it all meant. James said that now he wants to go east and catch the dragon. In this way, he intended to win fame and honor. The guy said with confidence and pride that this path would lead him to the position of head of the knightly order. The girl asked him what the connection was between love and honor. She reminded that expedition was leaving tomorrow. But the guy claimed that this was important to him, and he's going to take a long vacation, and the girl wondered who would protect her when he was not around. The knight said that for this she has Marin and Zelda. The girl asked if her new lover would turn out to be a murderer. In this case, he advised her not to meet anyone until his return. The guy assured that the former princesses would not do anything, because he had intimidated them enough. The princess said that she would soon have a child, and it won't be easy for her in the near future. Jade held his head, sighing. He claimed that this circumstance worries him most of all. He forbade her to drink even a drop of alcohol, instructed Zelda to monitor her medication intake. Until the birth was allowed, he was forbidden to ride a horse. He said that even if there is no appetite, but the girl interrupted him on this, arguing that perhaps his absence is even for the better. Then she asked the guy more seriously that he was really leaving her to the mercy of fate. He confirmed this with a sad face. The girl said that while he was gone she might die, but he assured her that this should not happen. She said that he knew perfectly well that she might not survive the next fever, but the guy assured her that he would return in time. The girl said that everyone knows about her death. They don't know when it will come. The guy recalled that over the past 5 years he had never been late. He asked to be allowed to say goodbye. The princess silently looked at Jade for a long time with wet eyes, but she held back all her emotions. The knight, standing on one knee, bowed to Kirona. He wished her an easy birth. He insisted that he wanted to be with her all the time. I wished her not to get sick and take her medications on time. The girl glared at him. The guy touched her round belly. He promised that he would pray for both of them. I wanted her and her child to always be safe. The princess was thinking. He always looked at her stomach with hostility. But apparently he still didn't hate the child. And now the guy pressed himself against her stomach and said that Dad would be back soon. The princess pulled back and began to shout at the knight so that he should not joke like that. That since she forgives him everything, he has never learned to see the boundaries of what is permitted. She reminded him that he wasn't even married yet. And in this case, all sorts of unnecessary gossip may arise. But the guy claimed that he was still not going to get married. Jade reminded the princess that she herself was going to entrust the child to him as soon as she gave birth. And it is he who will dress him, hug him, rock him in his arms, and soothe him while crying like a real father. The girl calmed down and said that she was simply afraid that someone might misunderstand them. She admitted that she herself doesn't know exactly who the biological father is, but it's definitely not him. The guy said that he knew all this very well, but it didn't matter to him because the child was still a princess, and this meant that it was the same as his own. Kirona wanted to tell the knight something else, but he, continuing to stand on one knee in front of her, asked her not to say anything more. The guy gently touched the fingers of her hand, and then he brought her brush, kissing her. He said that no matter what else she wanted to tell him, he promised to listen when he returned back. Half a year later, on one of the sunny and clear days, the head of the knightly order made a report to the empress. He said that the current composition of the detachment has the smallest number of victims. He also reported that they had recovered a lot of treasures. The man's face was covered in battle scars. It was Marin Da. A tear appeared on his cheek. He reported that, however, Jade Eclipse was missing. He insisted that they could not find his body. 5 years have passed since then. The girl asked why I was passing by again. She assured that this candidate was prettier than the others, but the princess said that she did not like him. The brunette assured that his face was not to the princess's taste. It did not mean at all that he could not become a good father for Her Highness Julia. It was Zelda Black, escorting Kirona's knight. She asked the princess to think bigger, reminding who the applicant was already in the account, banging his fist on the table. Kirona drew Zelda's attention, that she saw in her an unscrupulous person who decides the future of her daughter according to her taste in men. The princess admitted that because of those she did not like, she felt a sense of discomfort. The knight asked if there were any men whom Her Highness considered handsome. Kirona asked her to look at Yuli. What if a person similar to her appears, that she will confirm the level that corresponds to a girl? The knight began to wave her arms. She claimed that Her Highness Yuli behaves this way now because she is a copy of her mother. And since it is difficult to find her biological father by her face, unnecessary fuss occurs. Zelda argued that if she at least tried, there would be hope that someone could take the place of her real father. The princess argued that the applicant would still not be able to cope. Her Highness claimed that she would die soon. Therefore, it is necessary to find a plausible father by any means necessary. Face, family, condition, character. Everything about him should be ideal. The knight decided since Her Highness Kirona started talking about it. She reported that her daughter has recently been regularly interested in the identity of her mother. Zelda reported that the girl used to wander around Kirona's office alone. She involuntarily shuddered. The knight assured that the girl was smart beyond her years, and the fact that a person very similar to herself is walking on the door. She probably already guessed who her mother was. The girl told Her Highness that she could not hide forever. She replied that she knew all this, but she couldn't stay close to the child for long, and if Yuli gets attached to her, it could hurt her. The princess assured that the girl, fortunately, was a member of the imperial family. Therefore, there will be someone to take care of her. Princess Kirona stated that therefore Yuli is not her daughter, but a child of the Mihada's empire. Zelda even regretted that she herself raised the topic of this conversation. And the princess, lying on the sofa, answered her that since she understood everything, she sent her to mind her own business. The knight was against ending the conversation. She claimed that they had such a fun conversation, and she asked me to tell you about the ideal type for the role of a father for a girl. The princess said that he should be handsome, of large build and with clear facial features. The knight quickly wrote everything down in a notebook with a pencil. Kirona added that a man should not be arrogant, which is necessarily faithful and obedient like a dog, and his hair is preferably not a bright dark brown color. The brunette specified the eye color of the desired candidate. The princess thought dreamily. She answered that he should have dark blue eyes closer to indigo color. The princess remembered the moment when she said goodbye to Jade, how she straightened his light brown bangs from his dark blue eyes. The knight found it strange that a certain person came to her mind, remembering that in the distant past there was just such a guy among her younger colleagues, and his name was Jade Eclipse. Kirona claimed that living a life where death was already predetermined, she realized one truth, that even if one person disappears, Life will continue to go on as usual. And no matter how much a person suffers, in the end everyone will certainly adapt to it. She was aware that she was still sad and missed him. But she didn't see the point, because she expected her own death. The princess stood at the window. It had been 5 years since she last saw the guy. She asked Zelda to tell her what kind of person Jade Eclipse was. The knight said that he was madly in love. She asked Her Highness if she really had no feelings for Jade. Kirona told her that now it doesn't matter anymore, that the guy is dead and she will die soon, and when everything happens, everything will end. The knight assured that she simply hated it when the princess spoke like that. She assured that it would be better if he went with them to look for a cure, and then they could help in case of an unforeseen situation. The knight said that Jade was wrong when he left Her Highness alone and went to his death. The conversation was interrupted by a servant entering. Both girls turned their heads in his direction at the same time. He called out to Her Highness that Mr. Jade Eclipse had returned. They gave the order to open the gate. Little Yuli was surprised that the guest had arrived again. She looked at the group of men from afar, dreaming about what gift they brought her this time. The girl from her hiding place gazed at the newcomer. She noted that today's guest is much younger and more beautiful than all the previous ones. The bag that the baby was leaning on began to slide to the side, and the girl screamed and rolled. Men rushed to her aid. She closed her eyes in fear, and when she secretly opened it, she was already in the arms of that newly arrived stranger. He called her Kirona, but the guy next to him assured Jade that it was not her. The girl, completely emboldened, introduced herself. "My name is Yuli," and she was very surprised that he might not know her. The knight said that he was late for the performance. He said that he was the legal escort of Her Highness Kirona, that he was leaving on a military campaign, and now he has returned home. He assured that they had met before, when she was still in her mother's belly. The girl looked at him with eyes wide open in surprise, full of delight. Yuli realized that this man might know about the one who gave birth to her. She said that means he is not their guest. The guy didn't understand what she meant. The knight commander was in a hurry to say something to Jade, but the girl demanded to answer her question. Is he a guest or not? Jade replied that if he correctly understood the meaning of this word, then he was exactly that. The girl asked that he would also like to become her father. The guy replied that this was not so because God might be angry at his lies. He carried the girl away in his arms. The knight said that he had to do something first, however. Yuli innocently asked him again. Princess Kirona hurried to meet the guy. Zelda was behind the mistress, covering her mouth with her hand out of excess emotion. The baby, being in the guy's arms, pressed to his chest, heard the rhythm of his rapidly beating heart. She realized that he was nervous. The princess stopped at a respectable distance in front of Jade. She asked angrily why he came only now. The knight said that he came because he loved her. In the Manhwa-Hub Empire, when Princess Kirona was 12 years old, she lay on the bed and complained that she was hot. Called someone for help. He took her in his arms. He asked how much pain she was in. She said it was very painful. But according to the mother, members of the imperial family should not cry. The hooded creature told the girl that it was okay to cry, that she's still 12 years old. He kept his dark hand on her forehead. He said that her body seemed to be on fire. The child asked who he was, and she grabbed the cloak with her hand, demanding an answer from him. The creature replied that he was always curious to know what she looked like. It turned out that the young princess exceeded all his expectations. He stroked the girl's head. He said that she was much more charming and sweeter than he previously thought. The princess shrank all over from these touches. The entity said that he liked her so much that he would like to take her to him forever, so that only he could admire her. The girl asked who he even was. Standing by the bed, the girl doctor spoke disappointing words to the empress. What is tetra fever, and at present it is incurable. The girl's mother began to yell at the best doctor in the empire. How dare she treat her daughter with such disdain? It was obvious that the girl might have caught a cold while playing in the morning, but the doctor assured that she could not lie right in front of Her Highness, and asked if she knew what kind of disease it was. The girl heard this entire conversation. The doctor said that tetra fever is also called the whisper of 5 demons. This was the first disease in history that included 5 stages of development. It is impossible to predict an increase in temperature. In this case, the interval between attacks can be no more than a year. The doctor stood by the princess's bed and told her serious things, which in addition is everything that is known about the disease. This is that, with the 5th fever, comes death. The girl asked Emma the reason for her honesty. She assumed that it was Mother who could have ordered that one. But the doctor said that the mother was against their conversation, and she herself insisted on him. The woman said that since everything is predetermined, it is better to be informed in advance, that they have no right to deprive her of knowledge about her own illness just because she is still very young. Emma said that this was her medical opinion, and she bowed to the girl. She had a look of hopelessness on her face. Kirona repeated the name of her illness, Whisper of 5 Demons. She realized that that day it was the demon that came for her. The girl asked Emma, from her medical point of view, how much time can you live with such a disease? The doctor, after a pause, replied that the princess would live until she was 25 at most, but she should pull herself together. And so it turned out that at the age of 13, the princess's life completely changed, and now she couldn't call it life at all. The maid stood at the door blocking the girl's opportunity to go out. The princess asked Marie to explain to her clearly and convincingly why should she skip the rain discipline class. The maid said that Her Majesty was worried about her daughter, but the girl was surprised that her mother was afraid that the book might eat her. Marie hesitated. She said that more than a year had passed since the last attack, and no one could know when the girl's temperature would rise again. Corona started screaming. She asked the maid to look at her. She asked if she looked weak and sick. Marie didn't answer, and the girl asked for an answer. Does she look like someone who is about to die? The maid placed her hand sympathetically on the princess's shoulder. She told Her Highness with a sad face that she too was not happy about all this. She said that she remembers how bright the girl was before her illness, and how many things I wanted to bring to life. She simply couldn't believe that everything could collapse at once. The Empress had previously told her daughter that she needed to be appointed heir to the throne as soon as possible. That unlike herself, her daughter has unsurpassed abilities in military affairs, and she will be able not only to defend the empire, but also to spread their influence far beyond its borders. Corona confirmed the truth that she was the first princess of the empire, and she assured that if rumors spread about her fatal illness, they would cause them a lot of headaches and troubles. Marie was crying, and the girl asked her not to treat her as if she were already dead, because she was still here among living people. And at the age of 15, instead of a fever, the girl was visited by someone else. Then she slept peacefully in her bed. But I heard a crash and woke up. She thought that since she did not have a temperature, then this was not that person. And she turned over to the other side. The steel of the sword blade flashed. The girl jumped back asking who he was. The sword stuck next to her leg. The hooded guy said that only a fool would reveal his identity if he intended to kill a member of the imperial family. At that moment, the girl was amused by the realization that it was not the fear of death that arose inside her, and not even longing for her usual life or regret that her life is about to be lost. She had the opportunity to end her extinguished life, and it gave her a feeling of freedom. She saw the guy raising a blade over her. The girl believed that it was better for her to leave like this in order to lighten the burden for her mother. She tried so hard to hide her daughter's illness, but then she heard a sharp call by name. They asked her if she was okay, and why didn't she evade her attacker or call for help. In her room, a guy stood with a baton in his hand and regained his breath, and the hooded one was already lying flat on the carpet next to her bed. The guy said that he would now go and call the security for help, but then he changed his mind because the scoundrel could come to his senses at any moment. The girl asked him why he saved her. The guy froze at this question. The princess began to yell at him with tears in her eyes that no one asked him for help. But he answered her that everything was obvious, that all living people want to stay alive. The princess asked his name, the one who came to her at night instead of a fever. A guy with bright hair introduced himself to Her Majesty. Francis. This guy became Corona's first love. The guy asked Her Majesty to always be with him. He was a beautiful man like a flower, and despite his low status, for the girl he was a wonderful knight from a fairy tale. He said he didn't want anything else, that she is the only one he needs. His eyes shone with happiness, and the guy was always next to the princess. He was telling her what she so desperately wanted to hear. At 16, the princess fell in love. The girl was sitting with the doctor at the tea table. Emma asked the princess what good happened, seeing how she was all shining. Corona admired, considering them beautiful, the flowers in the vase. They appeared here in the morning next to her bed. The maids were already whispering in the corners that Her Highness and Francis actually began a relationship. The doctor was waiting for an answer from Corona, and she dreamily looked at the flower and carefully touched its petals. She said that the name of the flower translates as permeating time, and considered it romantic. Emma was surprised that Her Highness began a relationship with this chamberlain, but the princess pulled her back. She asked the doctor if she could get pregnant. She was surprised by this question, and she answered that everything was quite possible. After all, the girl has already had her first period, which means her reproductive system is normal. She clarified with what intention she suddenly asked such a thing. The princess confirmed to the doctor that she wanted to have a child. She replied that this was unacceptable for her. After all, pregnancy and childbirth itself will become a great stress for the princess's body. This applies even to healthy women. The girl said that she knew all this, but she wasn't afraid. She had a determined and brave look. She added that she would die anyway. Emma asked the girl what would happen in a few years, after the arrival of the third fever, reminded that the girl was only 16, and that she was still so young. The girl began to scream, that the longer she waits, the less time she will be able to spend with her child. Therefore, I must do everything as soon as possible. The doctor asked the princess whether this was her personal opinion, or whether Francis suggested it to her. The girl said that the guy had no idea about her illness. After all, it was an imperial secret. Hirana used to think that she was completely powerless, and she believed that after her death the light would go out. But she believed that a child changes everything. After all, he could live even if she was no longer around. The princess wondered what would become of Francis after her death. He will probably become weak from melancholy and lose all meaning in life. And envious people will take the chance to kick him out of the palace. But if a child were born, Francis could be recognized as his father, and then he would receive completely different opportunities. Emma wanted to object to the girl, but she interrupted her, having said that she likes this option best. Kirana claimed that this child would become her true trace as proof that she lived in this world. Soon the princess had a younger brother and sister, and she understood the significance of their birth into this world. When the girl met her mother, she congratulated her with a sour face. The mother just looked down at the girl and, without answering, walked past her. The imperial family were the feudal lords of the Mahada's empire, and in order to rule this place, at least 5 heirs were needed. The empress already had 3 successors, not counting Kirana, and if you add 2 newborns, then the required number becomes available. And the princess realized with sadness that her place was ideally filled by her mother's recently born children, and the mother herself was finally able to abandon her eldest daughter. The guy asked Her Highness if she was okay. He was worried about her unhealthy appearance, but the girl assured that she was just a little tired. But the chamberlain saw that it was not a matter of fatigue. He claimed that he could see her bad mood. She started to make fun of her. She said that she saw no reason for that at all. After all, she had 2 younger ones, and now there will be 6 of them in the family. Hirana said that the more blood relatives, the better. After all, they can support each other. Francis claimed that they also posed a threat to her, but he asked her not to worry. He recalled that she was the Empress's most valuable child. The princess closed his mouth with a slam. She whispered to him that even the imperial palace had ears. The guy said that if it helps rid her of the threatening expression on her face, then he is ready to take such a risk. The chamberlain closed his eyes with pleasure and began to kiss the girl's palm. She was surprised by his courage and impudence. Then, having made up her mind, she threw herself on his neck. She told Francis that he didn't care what kind of person she was. The girl knocked the guy onto his back and was already above him. She said that she wanted to make a child with him. The guy was surprised. And at that moment, the girl thought of the flower Dwayne that Francis had given her. This flower meant love beyond time and space. And time and space are the 2 axes of the universe, and no one was able to change this. The girl thought that her love with Francis was exactly the same as that symbolic flower. The couple kissed, surrendering to the sudden surge of feelings. Even the strongest knight will not protect his beloved if he is far from her. And if the greatest wizard turns back time, this will not help avoid the death of his beloved. The girl thought that that small and fragile flower looked like Francis himself. Her hair was scattered across the green grass of the lawn, that he contradicted such a strong judgment. And just that one thing made him absolutely beautiful. The girl thought that everything would be fine, even if the grandiose language of flowers did not come true. The princess spoke words of love to her chamberlain, and again their soulful kiss took place. The girl asked if the guy loved her. There was a sound of metal. Francis's dagger pinned to the ground the flower that had just been on the princess's head. The guy replied that God saved him from this. Francis was on top of the girl, leaning on his hands. He was surprised at her naivety that she believed in these stupid feelings. He laughed openly in the princess's face. But I didn't expect such strength from a fragile girl. He didn't take into account that Her Highness had outstanding martial arts skills. And very soon the knights, attracted by the noise, hastened to the aid of the princess. They tied his hands like a criminal, and the girl was surprised that she didn't even try to justify herself. The girl reminded him that he had recently spoken to her about his love, and he mocked her in response, surprised that she believed this nonsense so easily. Francis claimed that he lost his entire family to the Empress, and after that his whole life went downhill. The Chamberlain continued to verbally kill the girl. He said that love is nothing, it was so easy to fabricate it. The guy was kneeling in front of the princess with his hands clasped behind his back, but he continued to mock her in her face. He said that in the end even Her Highness believed his skillful play on feelings. Francis argued that it is not warm feelings that fill meaning but something stronger, such as revenge, hatred, obsession, greed. The princess was angry with the guy, calling him bad words, but he assumed that people would consider his plan a failure. But they are unlikely to dare to say this to the girl directly in the face. The guy said that she personifies the image of a girl filled with love, who is ready to give her heart, that she didn't even realize that they had come to kill her, that her despair and contrite appearance were simply an amazing sight for him, and he assumed that it turned out even better than the plan of revenge that he had previously conceived. The girl expressed her doubts that he managed it. After all, he simply did not have enough patience, but he could have done a much more significant act. The princess held the guy's face. She assured that she had completely succumbed to the deception, and she loved him much more than he could imagine. Kirana said that she even wanted to give birth to a child from him and make him an heir. And in this case, his revenge would be the most ideal in the history of the empire. The girl brought her face closer to the guy. She asked whether revenge does not imply the deprivation or destruction of something important. She assured him that feelings were not important to her at all. The princess said that since he was going to die soon, she wanted to share her secret with him. She whispered to him that she was terminally ill. The guy looked at her dumbfounded, and the girl asked if he now regrets that he was in a hurry. The princess lost interest in her former chamberlain, and when she left, she asked the knights not to torture him too much. The guy howled and said that she was lying to him. The princess's face turned stone, and Francis was led away by the arms of 2 knights. Rain poured down from the sky mercilessly. Kirana found shelter in the stables. She thought about the guy's last words and agreed that they were right. The princess agreed with his opinion that love cannot become the meaning of life. What if you think about it, it wasn't love that preserved her miserable existence. She sat right on the floor of the stable, hiding her face. The girl admitted to herself that what made her endure was an obsession with life itself. She admitted to herself that she didn't really want any kind of relationship, but simply had a desire to exist. The horse next to the princess neighed and began to touch her by the hair on her head with its lips. The girl knew this noble animal and called him by name. Kirana got up from the floor. She began to talk to Molly. She asked the horse for forgiveness for not coming to her for so long. The girl apologized for leaving the animal alone. I caressed her on the withers. She said that she should have come to her earlier, showing a persistent character. Then the girl wrapped her arms around the horse's neck, hugging it. She said that it was not worth giving up on herself just because others had already abandoned her. She didn't want to die. A desperate desire pierced the girl's heart every night and did not allow her to sleep. Until this moment, she had not admitted it to herself. After all, it was clear that a person suffering from tetra fever would inevitably die. And there was no one in the world who could say otherwise. But now the girl didn't care, because she herself had to become such a person. Kirana hugged and kissed her favorite horse since childhood. She had already decided for herself that she would not give in to the disease so easily. The girl said that she had to find a cure and save herself, even if you have to go to the ends of the world. The princess told the horse, continuing to stroke it, that she breathed just like everyone else and she didn't want people to treat her like a corpse. She claimed that she would no longer wait patiently for the demon to come to take her away forever. And that very night, as if waiting for her, a second attack came. The girl was lying in her bed and the demon was sitting next to her. When she came to her senses, she immediately noticed his presence and instinctively grabbed the dagger. The demon greeted her. Kirana, threatening with hostility, pointed the tip of her blade at the neck of the uninvited guest. He leaned back a little in surprise. The demon assured that he would not harm her today. He asked her to lower the blade. He claimed that it was too dark in here and she might accidentally get hurt. The princess asked not to lie to her. After all, he is the demon that came for her soul. The demon asked if her temperature had dropped a little and how she was feeling. Kirana asked what he wanted to do. She was surprised that he still considered her a child. The creature asked him to forgive him for not thinking ahead, and the girl noticed to herself that for a demon he was too polite. She asked him how he got here. The demon answered through the window, pointing with his gaze at the open doors. The princess didn't believe him. She claimed that this was the top floor, and the perimeter is guarded by reliable and selfless knights. He answered the girl that he had some abilities, and the girl was surprised that it really was a demon, and she asked if he was really going to take her with him. The entity touched the princess's face, caressing her cheek. He said he wanted to take her away. The girl shuddered, but he added, smiling, that the time had not yet come for this. Kirana defiantly looked the demon straight in the face. She said that he would never be able to because she herself would not allow him. The hooded demon smiled. He told the princess that she was still a very interesting girl. He asked her to try to hold out until the end. He said that he really hoped that everything would be so. But Kirana couldn't understand what was wrong. Oddly enough, it was as if she was supported. But then she doubted that the entity wanted to support her. Surely he meant that her end would come anyway, and he wanted her to try to fight. The princess understood that he was a demon that fed on her suffering, but she was not going to be obedient and submit as he wished. She decided to find out more, and she said that she almost died and not at all because of illness. After all, if she does not die from a fever, then he will not be able to achieve his goal. The demon said he knew about Frances, that he's always watching her to protect her until he takes her with him, and he reached out to her with his hand. He insisted that she needed to forget that guy, and he promised that only good things await her from now on. He held her tightly by the shoulder. Kirana looked boldly into his eyes. She told him not to make her laugh. After all, no one can know the future, that even she could not imagine that she would live in anticipation of death, and therefore she doubted that he could know that only good things awaited her or not. The demon asked if she was afraid, and how she is able to try to find hope in the face of her misfortune. But the princess was in a situation where anyone would be imbued with the creature that was nearby. Even if it was a demon that pushed her into the abyss of suffering, she remembered those words. A horse galloping through a storm is not afraid of the wind. A fish caught in a raging stream is not afraid of the waves. And now the demon was pronouncing them to her, holding her by the shoulders. The princess was surprised that the demon was quoting the text of the blessing, but he said that he was not very religious, that I just somehow heard from someone. The girl was surprised that the entity was reading lines from the Holy Scriptures, but she was thinking about performing an exorcism if she didn't find a cure. But he assured her that there would be no more talk. It is clear that she is already tired of the prolonged fever. The girl said that she did not want to sleep, but he had a different opinion. She asked what the meaning of that passage was. Kirona said that she also studied the blessing, but had never seen anything like it. The demon answered her that it means she does not need to be afraid. She didn't understand what exactly. He answered, "Whatever it is." The girl voiced to her mother her decision to go east in search of a cure. She was surprised at this act because even the cause of her illness was not known. The Empress reminded Corona that she was her firstborn. She said that she doesn't know what everything looks like from the outside, but she insisted that she never gave up or abandoned her. The mother believed that if a cure existed, it would have already been found, that even now she is making every effort for this. The woman reminded her daughter that she was sick with an incurable disease, and for more than 1,000 years not even the reason for it has been found. She assured that this was a disease in the face of which even the doctors of the imperial family, Emma Hugin, gave up. The girl confirmed that she knew all this. She said that that's why she was going to act on her own, holding the hilt of the dagger in her belt with her hand. She assured that the doctors only repeated that they were very sorry and apologized, and magicians claim that they are conducting tests to obtain medicines. The girl realized that both of them were simply procrastinating, filling their pockets with her mother's gold. She understood that, moreover, after the birth of her sisters, her mother completely stopped doing anything to solve the problem with her eldest daughter. The princess mentally understood her choice. After all, a member of the imperial family who is unable to live has lost all value for it. And the girl, Understanding all the logic of her mother's actions as an empress still could not accept it with her heart. After all, how could her own mother abandon her? And how could her younger sisters replace her? The empress told her daughter that that zone in the east is a place where even capable knights refuse to go. She asked if she knew that there were dangerous monsters waiting for the unwary victim at every step, and how many talented people died there. Kirona claimed that there are rare medicinal herbs that grow only there. And also in the east there live healers, prophets, and eccentric magicians who devoted their entire lives to research. She told her mother that she had nothing to lose anyway. The empress replied that for her sake she had nothing to lose. She could not sacrifice the knights of the imperial family. The woman claimed that once she went there, 4 out of 10 would never return. Then the girl realized what was going on. She smiled back. The mother continued that she did not understand how the princess would be able to send the imperial knights to the east. That there, they will definitely be kidnapped by mercenaries demanding ransom. The girl realized that for her mother, the empress, there were many more important things than love for her daughter. The same applied to herself. She now had something more important than life as an obedient daughter. Kirona recalled that a punitive detachment of prisoners was always sent to the east. She thought that this would be enough for her. She also assured that she was going to take a medicine from the magicians that changes the color of the eyes. The girl was going to hide her belonging to the imperial family in such a way that problems would not arise. The princess asked her mother to just leave her, so that she can take care of herself and find a way to heal or perish there. The empress began to shout at her daughter. Ask what she's talking about anyway. But the girl argued that her mother should no longer be afraid of rumors spreading about her imminent death. The girl asked to be released with a blessing, and wish her luck. The mother looked reproachfully at her firstborn, realizing that the girl had a steely character. The empress had nothing more to say to her daughter, and the girl, realizing this, turned around and left the throne room. She stood under the closed door and took a breath after a difficult conversation. The girl was asked by her sister if it was true that she was leaving for the east. It was one of her younger sisters. Pine was the 4th princess of the Manhwa-Hub Empire. Kirona confirmed, saying that she wanted to go on a trip, and on the way she was going to look into the Tower of Magicians and say hello to her sister's father. But Pine asked her not to change the topic of their conversation and answer honestly. She doubted the veracity of Kirona's words, since she did not take guards with her, but joined the rabble in the punitive detachment. The older sister assured that it was terribly boring when someone constantly follows her, and it will be something like a secret journey. But her sister didn't believe her. She told Kirona that she herself knew, that she was different from their other stupid sisters in her powers of observation and ability to analyze. Therefore, I insisted on her honest answer. The girl was surprised by her sister's insight because she was still just a child, and I didn't know what to answer. Pine asked her sister point blank, "Are you dying?" The girl made another attempt to avoid a direct answer, pretending that she did not understand what she was talking about. The younger one asked if her sister had tetra fever, assuming that she is not going on a trip but in search of Nadalin. Kirona froze in surprise. Nadalin was a flower created by Lady Teresia. Although they said that the Nadalin flower is a kind of monster, yet it was a legendary plant, recognized as sacred throughout the world. Pine insisted that this was true. Her sister made fun of her for locking herself in the library for several days for whatever purpose it turns out. The younger one was surprised that her sister didn't know that her favorite book was the Encyclopedia of Legendary Monsters, and that her sister's notes in the margins and the folded corners of the pages in her favorite book got on her nerves. The younger one was surprised that from some day on her sister stopped showing up at classes for heiresses, and as soon as she caught a cold, the servants immediately created a real commotion. Pine assured that from the outside it looked more than strange, but no one could have thought that Kirona was hiding such a secret. The eldest of the sisters gave up and admitted to her that she was going to the east because she did not want to die. The girl was surprised that a man who did not want to die went with an army of criminals to the east to the lair of monsters. And all this was for the sake of some mystical flower. Kirona reported that it is called a cure for all diseases, that all she had to do was find him and she could fight for her life. The girl doubted that anyone had ever managed to find such a flower, but her sister answered that the ancient records say that it blooms only in the east. The younger one was annoyed that her sister believed in this and relied on records from 500 years ago, that her decision is no different from being inspired by an old fairy tale about a feat against a dragon with a wooden sword. Pine held her temples. She doubted that her sister would be able to find the plant in such a dangerous place, leading a group of imprisoned criminals. Corona reported that they would not be the only ones with her, that upon arrival in the east she is going to involve mercenaries in the operation. Pine urged that her sister should turn to her mother with a request, so that she would send a detachment of elite knights to the east to find a healing flower. She held her hands and looked straight into her eyes. Corona assured that her mother already had a child to replace her. She realized that all the children in the world are innocent, regardless of the place, form, and for what reason they were born. Therefore, she sincerely hoped that all her sisters would be healthy and would never get sick like she did. After all, in the past, she too was such a child for the Empress, on whom they pinned a lot of hopes. Corona said that it was time for her to leave, and turning her back to her sister, she hurried to leave her. Pine shouted after her sister, "Which wishes her luck?" She reminded her of the myth about the dying girl who drew the red lot and became a miracle knight. The girl told her sister that she, like that miracle knight from the myth, would draw the red lot. A horse galloping through a storm is not afraid of the wind. A fish caught in a raging stream is not afraid of the waves. Child who has drawn the red lot, the whole world is striving to meet you. Nothing else can frighten you. It was about Corona. After all, in youth everyone receives mental wounds. Therefore, in this vast empire, the princess suffering from an incurable disease was not the only one who had lost the meaning of love. The guy realized that he wanted to hit the road in search of a way to survive. The year James Eclipse turned 16, Eclipse County was completely destroyed. The letter that he then received stated that the Count, his father, had died, and John and Mark Eclipse, his brothers, went missing. Jaima lay there and thought about the situation. All this happened because of damn love. One of the 7 knights who fought for Teresia, the goddess of creation, was Yuri Eclipse and his descendants, the Eclipse family. The lady was asking the boy why he didn't like Yuri Eclipse. The boy explained that according to the legend about the founding of the country, that Knight of the Flame gave up everything for love, devoting his life to Teresa. He considered that knight wrong and crazy, and he regretted that his pedigree had not gone away, because generations of their kind were crazy about love and destroyed families just like him. This is how Jaime reasoned with his older sister when he was only 12 years old. He assured her that was what people said. He believed that all eclipses pretended to be decent, but had madness running through their veins. And if they go crazy because of something, they can't get out. This was especially true for love. The boy assured his sister that for this reason he would never allow himself to be bewitched by such a stupid feeling. And in truth, there was a good reason why the boy made such a firm decision. The girl was banging on the door. She asked Mother to leave. After all, her son had never seen her face since birth. It was known that Countess Eclipse married for love without any political purpose. This was quite rare among women in the Mihara's empire. And thanks to this, all children had one blood father. But it so happened that this beloved man died of tuberculosis before the birth of his youngest son, Jade. Then, out of grief, the Countess closed the doors and stopped receiving anyone. And this went on for 10 years. But what pulled the Countess out, drowning in emptiness, was love. Thanks to the Countess, who contacted the gambler in such a timely manner, all her wealth of the Eclipse family was exhausted. Her new lover lost significantly. Simultaneously with the loss of her livelihood, she again lost her lover. The boy read a letter from his sister. She was tired of everything and eventually disappeared without a trace, leaving only a goodbye note to her brothers. A woman in a robe with fur spoke to the guys that they owe him 200 million Elysiums and there won't be enough of them even if you sell this castle. He offered them a choice, a mercenary guild or a gladiator gaming house. The boy threw the papers at his feet. He chose the mercenary guild. The reputation of their family, gained by crazy love, was lost because of it. How contradictory this was. Jade remembered his sister's note addressed to him. She advised him never to fall in love in his life, and now he swore this to her in his mind. And now the guy was reading a letter from his older sister. He didn't even think that she, with her poor health, would last so long. And he understood that eventually even the name Eclipse would disappear over time. The guy rubbed his eyes, tired from reading. He said he didn't care about any of this. A year has already passed since the terminally ill princess left home, and a year after the line of the Flame Knight lost its honor. A rough voice commandingly called for Jade Eclipse to get up. A man in a dark cloak said that there was a new assignment. He ordered the guy to open his sleepy eyes, and he was unhappy that he was disturbed so early in the morning. A lady with an eye patch and a scar on her cheek read from a piece of paper. About 17 to 19 years old, about the height of his chest, dark brown hair and gray eyes. She assured him that he didn't need to know anything else. She said that this person should just be kidnapped and brought here to her. The guy scratched his head puzzledly, thinking. Legs in black ankle boots walked along the road. The guy pulled the hood of his cloak over his head. He could not even imagine that he would have to enter this damned forest again. He was ordered to kidnap the girl and bring her to the guild, but do it in such a way that not even a hair falls from her head. He was never able to get an answer as to who he needed to hunt for. The boss retorted that he had never cared about the details of orders before. Why did he suddenly become interested in this now? The lady began to mock the guy. She asked that his health had worsened due to the kidnapping of the baby, but he asked not to talk nonsense. He remembered that Zelda Black had already taken this task with pleasure, and he was surprised that he was entrusted with this. The boss said that Zelda still hasn't shown up. They've been waiting for her for so long. The guy argued that perhaps she had reasons or some insurmountable difficulties that she could not return. Jade didn't like that this was monster territory. Also the Nabimi Forest. I was surprised who dared to go there. I assumed that only a madman could be like that. This place was where the Empire, instead of execution, sent its prisoners under the guise of a punitive detachment. And the guy was surprised that that girl decided to go there. The lady called out to Jade Eclipse, smiling. She assured the guy that since his older brothers had run away, he should at least work hard to repay their family's huge debt. The lady tried to interest the guy by freeing him from paying all interest for a whole year. But his expression did not soften. He just clenched his teeth harder. Branches clung to his clothes. The guy said to himself that he was not some idiot. He was well aware of all the local rumors. He had already heard a lot about the girl. She has brown hair, gray eyes, and a metropolitan accent. He also heard about the punitive detachment that appeared in the East a year ago. The knight who led them was either simply lucky or had outstanding abilities. But he was able to surprise many, because he dealt with everything alone. Although Jade believed that equally in the forest that lucky guy would surely meet his end. After all, there were so many monsters there. The guy was alerted by the sound and looked back over his shoulder. Something hissed and whined nearby. He covered his mouth and nose with his hand to prevent his breathing from giving away. A creature with scales crawled a meter away from him. He realized with horror that it could be a basilisk. That creature paralyzed people with just its gaze. Stops the breathing of living beings with just one breath. And no one could escape from him. This was a monster of the highest rank, even if he didn't have wings. But they said that it was much more difficult to defeat him than a dragon. Jade thought that the basilisk had already noticed him and put his hand on the handle, ready to use it at any moment. He realized that there was no point in running. He considered that he was choosing a better option than being digested in the stomach of that hellish snake. His sword fell to the ground at his feet. Leaning his back against a tree trunk, he pressed the blades of the dagger to his throat so as to end his life with one sharp movement. Already on his neck, a small cut with a sharp point appeared. But someone with incredible force grabbed him by the collar of his cloak and knocked the blade from his hands. The guy was confused. But at that moment, the capsule was already being passed from mouth to mouth. The girl pushed an amber round into his mouth, ending with a short kiss. Jade was surprised, but the girl ordered him to swallow. She hurried him to chew and swallow without any extra thought if he did not want to die. The guy chewed obediently, widening his eyes at the stranger who had come to his aid in such a timely manner. As he took a sip, he introduced himself. He looked at the girl and repeated to himself that under no circumstances should he fall in love with her. The girl asked her to untie her. I asked where they were going. The time was already approaching sunset. The guy walked ahead and led the girl tied by the hands behind him. She demanded an answer about him. She called him ungrateful that he had never even heard of a sense of duty. She regretted that she did not let the basilisk eat him there by that tree. She reproached him that he didn't even realize how valuable the medicine she gave him was. The girl assured that there was nothing strange about him, that it only helped to hide from monsters. The girl couldn't find the words to say to this rude man, and the guy pulled her by the rope to continue along the path. She demanded that the guy talk to her. I was surprised that he didn't know the language. He only looked at her angrily in response. Kirona sat down on the ground. She said that she could no longer walk with her hands tied because it was very difficult to move. She assured that she would not run away. That's why I asked her to just untie her. She claimed that she was already very weak. The guy was thinking. He replied that weak people do not meddle with monsters in the forest. I was surprised that she didn't understand how unconvincing her words sounded. The girl was surprised that he knew the language. She asked how he could ignore her, realizing that they were addressing him. Jade retorted that he never told her that he didn't know the language. I thought it was simply too noisy. And he believed that his answer would only complicate things even more. The guy put the tip of a dagger to her throat. He said that when he left her alone, there would still be no end to her chatter. Corona brazenly answered that it means putting a knife to the neck of a person who saved his life. This is an Eastern tradition. She smiled boldly, looking into his eyes. A few days ago, there was a conversation in a bar. The girl said that she knew a little about her interlocutor, that mercenary from the West named Maranda. The blonde with a scar on her face, without answering the question, asked the stranger who she was. She replied that it didn't matter. She asked me to be her guide. She said that she was going to go to Nabimi Forest. She handed the mercenary a bag with an advance payment in her hand. The mercenary choked. Having said that, of all places, this is the one where no one will go. And she too, even at the edge of the forest. The girl said that she would pay 5 million Elysian right now as a down payment, and another 5 million upon returning from the forest. The mercenary shuddered. Hearing the cost of the services, she slammed her fist on the table with a laugh. I asked when to leave. She insisted that she had always wanted to visit that forest at least once. She asked why the girl needed this. After all, even the Empress lost interest in Nabimi Forest. Or rather, the head of the empire abandoned the entire eastern region. Corona assured with a serious look that the Empress had not done anything like that. After all, the people of the empire also live here. Marin said that if her interlocutor had already spent more than a year in the East, I probably saw everything with my own eyes. Therefore, she considered this place to be a knight's grave and the land of abandoned people. Corona slammed her fist on the table. She agreed that Marin's words were right. During this difficult year living in the East, she understood only two things: what poor slums look like and what territory abandoned by the Empire means. After all, the East is mired in poverty. The black earth stretches all around, having absorbed the poison of monsters. The girl was determined. Marin insisted that she was only interested out of curiosity. She claimed that it was surprising, despite all the danger, that the girl still wanted to go to the Nabimi Forest. Corona said she was looking for one thing, but the mercenary was surprised what could be more important than life itself. The princess thought that more than a year had passed since her arrival in the East, but she wasn't like a flower. She couldn't even find any clues about it. I thought I needed to explore this place, even if I had to go there in person. But just as Marin had warned, the forest of Nabim was teeming with danger and hardly comparable to other areas of the East. Over the past days, the girl met many monsters. She often witnessed human deaths. The princess made every effort to survive. But who would have thought that in the end she would be kidnapped by some stranger, instead of attacked by a monster? She was surprised at the Eastern tradition of expressing gratitude in this way. The guy said that he would answer her only once, that he is a mercenary and needs money, and his rich client just wants to get her. The guy assured that if she was obedient, she would remain safe and sound. After all, the reward for a living person is greater than for a corpse, but he assured that he would kill her if she continued to make noise and get on his nerves. James believed that it would have been easier to kill the girl, and since the sun had already set, he ordered a halt until dawn. The meat was fried on the fire. Corona was sitting under a tree, tied hand and foot. She wondered where Marin might have gone. She consoled herself that she couldn't grab the basilisk. The girl decided to obey and, with the help of this mercenary, get out of the forest. She called the guy, "Hey," because she didn't know his name. She suggested introducing themselves to each other. After all, they won't hick each other all the time. She said that given that they were in the Nabimi Forest, she was unlikely to be able to escape. The girl assured that until they left the forest, they would have to stick together one way or another. The guy had the feeling that he was the only one caught here. Corona demanded the kidnapper give her an answer, and he regretted that he got such a noisy girl to order. The guy noticed to himself that she knew too much to be a simple scion of an ordinary family. Just recently, she scolded him using 5 different languages, and her rude behavior was too natural. Besides, he didn't have time to think it through. The girl sat in front of him, irritated, and flew towards him. She again put something round in his mouth again with a kiss. The guy cursed to himself. He asked her what kind of candy she fed him. The magician gave them a handful to the girl. He asked her not to get too close to the monsters, and he reminded her that she was not an invincible warrior. The magician assured that although the medicine temporarily hides the smell and appearance of a person, the keen sense of monsters cannot be deceived by anything. The girl said that these were very valuable capsules. They help hide from monsters. The guy was interested in who gave them to her. She replied that she knew William Bryce. The guy was surprised that the girl received a favor from the owner of the magic tower himself. He asked her if she herself was a magician. At the same time, he suddenly jumped up and accidentally pulled the rope. She briefly denied. The guy demanded that she prove it. The girl asked how he should do it. She claimed that her sister's father, like her sister herself, were magicians, but she herself was not one of those. The guy realized for himself that if she is connected with William Bryce, then she probably belongs to the aristocracy. Jade held his head, fearing that he might be executed for kidnapping an important high-ranking person. He was already beginning to regret that he could not kill himself in front of the basilisk. The girl was interested in how much debt he had. He didn't understand her question. She was surprised that things were so bad that he decided to go to Nabimi Forest. After all, she understood that there were few reasons why a nobleman would become a mercenary. The guy was surprised by her insight. Kirona assured that his noble origin was too obvious. After all, it is not easy to get rid of habits laid down in deep childhood. The girl began to remember who went broke in recent years. The guy warned her to shut her mouth if she didn't want to die right now. The girl asked defiantly if he was going to get rid of her, and she answered for him that the price of remuneration did not allow him to do this. The guy doubted that if he let her go, she would pay off his debt, claiming that there is no person in the Mihada's empire capable of contributing 200 million Elysian. The girl asked for the amount and claimed that she could do it. She asked if he would come over to her side if she helped him pay off his debt. The guy asked her again. The girl claimed that she was ready to pay the entire amount for him, and she asked her to help. She doubted that he would be able to let her go, and she believed that she still had unfinished business in the East. She said there was something she needed to find, and nothing will stop her even if she has to dig up the entire forest. The guy openly laughed at the girl. He asked the girl about the degree of her madness. They continued walking along the path. The sun's rays shone through the foliage. Jade was alarmed by the unusual silence. But then I thought that there was nothing wrong with a peaceful environment. The girl noticed his wary appearance, and she said that the atmosphere was too strange. The guy asked her not to say anything stupid. The girl announced that she would now voice something smart, which might have become quiet due to the presence of the basilisk they had recently encountered. After all, with the awakening of a strong monster, the rest of the little things hide in the corners, Jade asked. Since she knows so much, she should know why she should keep her mouth shut. That he wouldn't have figured it out without it. The girl joked that she was always pleased to share good news. The guy argued that if she had any common sense, she would not call this good news. After all, when a large monster wakes up, the axes of time and space are distorted, and they themselves could be pulled into an unknown dimension, or thrown out in another period of time. The guy asked his companion if she would like to go on a similar trip with him. Kirona gave him an indignant look. She answered that she didn't want to at all. She suggested that they go quickly. She asked how much longer was left until the edge of the forest. Jade assured that it was a 2-hour walk. Therefore, he suggested that she keep quiet and pray to Teresia that good luck would accompany them. The girl turned to the guy indignantly, accusing him to his face that there was no righteousness left in him. Jade asked with a grin what she expected from a mercenary from the East. He clarified what this goddess had done for him in life. Kirona wondered why he had such an attitude towards religion. She reminded me that he was not just anyone, but a native of the Eclipse family. The guy stood in front of her, a little ashamed. The girl was confident that she was right. She said that he was the Countess's son, that he is a descendant of Yuri Eclipse, the Knight of Flame. That of all the 7 that are described in Teresia's collection, he is the most revered in all of Mihada's. That the story of Eclipse makes a strong impression. The girl began to quote, "Night of love, self-sacrifice, flame." The guy asked her to stop and close her mouth. But she continued, "A night of burning passion and madness." The guy clenched his fists and gritted his teeth tightly. He reached his hand towards the hilt of the sword at his belt. I thought that this time he would definitely silence her. But then the sound of a blow was heard. The girl swore. The guy was alarmed about what happened to her. She held her forehead and groaned. Kirona turned over her shoulder to her surprised companion and assured him that there was something ahead. The guy replied that there was nothing there, and he didn't believe her nonsense, but he himself felt something at hand, something that would not let him through further. Jade tested the strength of this screen with his fist, but his hand bounced back. The girl worriedly asked what happened and what was going on. The guy said that she herself saw everything, that they were locked. He rubbed his forehead, trying to come up with the best way out of this situation. Kirona claimed that the awakening of the basilisk nevertheless distorted space, or the monster could have set up a giant trap to catch them. The girl asked what they should do now. Jade thought it was worth returning, but she was against being back in the thick of the forest. The guy told her to move if she wanted to stay alive. The mercenary assured that if they went to the opposite edge of the forest, then perhaps there they could find a way out of it. Kirona doubted. What if they failed to find a way out there too? But then raindrops began to fall, and soon it turned into a downpour. Jade pulled the girl's hand. She resisted, cursing. He put her under a tree. Kirona continued to swear, asking him indignantly what he was doing such a thing. Jade told her that the rain is poisonous. The girl involuntarily shuddered. He said it was amazing bad luck. He swore it was not an act of chivalry or self-sacrifice that coursed through his veins. The guy said that for a mercenary, compliance with the terms of the contract is more important than life, and that all because the client said to bring the girl completely safe, so that a hair wouldn't fall off her head. He assured himself that he himself had no strong thirst for existence, that lately life has been tiring and annoying him, and if there is a way to die peacefully, then he will gladly accept it. He covered the girl with his cloak. She called him Eclipse. He mentally asked her not to address him by that damn last name, that she was just a means to pay off his debt. But he admitted to himself that when he heard the desperate call of a girl, he felt like he was doing all these stupid things to protect her. Like a knight who betrayed his master for the sake of the chosen one of his heart. He saved the goddess by blocking the sun with his back, but received nothing in return. Like stupid Yuri Eclipse, who gave his life for love. But not being able to offer anything else, he promised himself not to repeat the same fate of his ancestor. The guy fell flat on the ground. Kirona called him, but he did not respond. He seemed to be unconscious. The princess looked around in search of the optimal solution. She clenched her hand into a fist. It was sad to come all this way only to die from the rain. The guy had also given her his cape, and now he was lying motionless on the path under a tree. The girl couldn't understand. The guy was amazing or just stupid. She looked at him, appraising him. And by the way, I decided that up close he looked even younger. She brushed his brown hair from his face with her hand. Now she could tell his name. It was the youngest son of the bankrupt House of Eclipse who had to become a mercenary. Jade Eclipse. In class, the princess wondered, why memorize the names of the main aristocrats of the empire? And now it turns out that it was useful to her. She carefully touched the skin on the guy's face. She told the motionless guy that she liked him anyway. I tried to turn him over on his back. The girl noticed that of all the mercenaries she had met, he turned out to be the most loyal. But she realized that this devotion was, of course, to money, and not to herself. And she decided that she would undertake to save Jade. It seemed to her that he would be an excellent subordinate. The clouds were moving in again, threatening rain. The princess rolled the guy onto the cloak and dragged him along the path. He seemed very heavy to her. Kirona said that the kidnapper was lucky. After all, where else in the empire would he find an employer like her? She saw a pillar in the distance. I was surprised that it could be a chimney. This means there could be a house and living people there who would come to their aid. When the girl dragged the guy along the road, she told him that when he was silent, he was even cuter. She promised that when they returned to the capital, she would appoint him as her guard. Kirona told the unconscious guy that he should consider it an honor. After all, even if you combine the past and the future, he was the only patient whom the first princess of Mahadas personally endured. The light was on in the house, and a column of smoke was pouring out of the chimney. The hostess groaned and fussed. She was surprised that such important guests came to such a modest place. The girl was grateful that their uninvited guests were considered important. The fire burned brightly in the fireplace, crackling. The hostess claimed that the guests were in fact important. The old lady said that fortunately this guy is quite young. and the fact that they quickly got to her to eliminate the poison contributed to the fact that what happened would not affect his health in any way. The girl was surprised that the mistress of the house was so knowledgeable about wounds, to which she replied that although she was already an old woman, she was a magician, and in my youth I once worked as a healer. Looking at the guy, she claimed that he looked like a mercenary, but she couldn't understand how something like this could happen to him. He coughed in his sleep. The girl began to talk about the basilisk, that he seemed to have set a trap blocking their path from the forest, and then they were caught in the poisonous rain. But the girl did not expect the guy to be so badly injured. The old woman asked the girl if she herself was okay. She replied that she was not hurt at all, and the guy is like that because he protected her from that rain with his raincoat under the tree. Corona reproached herself that the guy's wounds were more serious than she had imagined, and I felt guilty. And now she didn't know how to pay him back. But the magician assured that there was no person who would take payment after fulfilling his duty, that he wouldn't dare just stand by. Meanwhile, she bandaged the guy's wounds on his shoulder. She assured that the guy had to take care of her like the apple of his eye and stay close to the princess. The old woman looked back at the girl and smiled slyly at her. The girl pretended that she did not understand what she was talking about, but the mistress of the house said that it was worth dropping the conventions, and she asked to call her simply Sonia. Corona was amazed that her interlocutor found out. She pulled back. After all, she definitely hid her eye color with magic. I thought that the effectiveness might decrease over time. The old lady asked who gave her such an inept potion, and she advised the girl to fire the magician who did such a hack job. She said that she simply could not help but recognize the color of Mrs. Theresia's eyes, that in this world, only members of the imperial family can have amber-colored eyes. In the sky, light clouds covered the pale moon. Jade woke up and jumped up sharply, looking around cautiously. The fire crackled hospitably in the fireplace. He couldn't understand what had happened, but he remembered very well that he was caught in the poisonous rain. Then I wondered where that girl had gone. He was still bothered by his cough. He scratched his head in thought, suspecting that his companion simply took advantage of the moment and ran away. The guy already regretted that he had put into her ears the idea of an unsafe stay in the local forest. And now, walking through the forest, she could definitely die. He clenched his teeth tightly in frustration, but then the tip of a blade touched his chest. The girl held the metal at his neck and fixed his shoulder. She asked him how he slept. The girl asked what he should be called, Hey, Kidnapper, or Jade Eclipse. The guy thought that this weasel had somehow managed to find out his name. The mercenary turned away from her. He said that he should use his name instead of using offensive nicknames. The princess assured that if he did not want to die, then it was better for him to follow her. They left the house and walked along the path. The guy asked where they were and where they were going now. Corona said that this was the house of the magician who saved him. The girl turned over her shoulder and smiling cheerfully said that she was taking him for a swim. Soon the thickets parted in front of them, revealing the mirror-like surface of the water. The stars reflected in the water with thousands of tiny lights. It was simply a mesmerizing sight, almost magical. The princess claimed that, according to the magician, this mineral spring helps wounds heal faster. Jade was already standing with his torso bare, covering himself with a cloth. He was surprised that the girl believed the first person she met. He accused her of not thinking about the dangers at all. The girl turned around and said over her shoulder that she had nothing to lose, and she also had no time left. She said that that's why she didn't run away, but decided to bring him here to help and heal his wounds. Corona asked him to listen to her carefully, that they alarmed the basilisk, and without a healthy body it is useless to run and hide, or to fight and defend. She said that it was time for the guy to close his mouth and silently quickly climb into the water of the source. But the mercenary continued to doubt. He wasn't sure if there was anything dangerous there. The girl decisively and unexpectedly kicked the guy off his feet into the water. It grouped itself and gurgled not far from the shore. Jade emerged from the water and began swearing at the girl, but I was very surprised to see how his wounds behaved. After a pause, the guy surprisingly said that his wounds were really healing. His savior from the shore proudly answered that this was all quite expected. She argued that if there is a disease, there must be a cure. The guy turned his head sharply to her and asked what she was planning to do. He turned away from the girl and heard a gurgling sound, and a minute later a girl stood in front of him, also in the water. I asked if he was really going to enjoy everything alone. Kirona claimed that she pushed him into the water to check if everything was okay. Jade was angry at her rude, selfish act, but the girl claimed that after his ropes and walking, her whole body hurt. The mercenary thought about it. After all, it looked like the girl was definitely from a high-ranking aristocracy. After all, how could one behave like that? He decided that he needed to get out of the water and think about what to do with this lady. But she took him by the hand. She said they needed to talk. The girl noticed many scars on her back. She asked how many years he had been working as a mercenary. The guy answered that it was about 5. She asked how old he was now. Jade, standing with his back to her, answered that he was 17. He couldn't understand what kind of conversation she was having with him in her underwear. Kirona told the guy that he was the same age as her. She asked who ordered her kidnapping and what reward was promised. Jade replied that she had no use for this information, and he wondered why he answered her questions so obediently. Kirona remembered that he had previously reported that he owed 200 million, and she was ready to hire him and pay the full amount. But the guy assured that if she was going to talk nonsense, then let her bring worthy arguments in her favor, that if he goes over to her, he must know what the task assigned to him is. Kirona said that she couldn't tell him that yet. The mercenary said that she was searching but did not understand what exactly. Jade said their conversation was over, that if she was going to hire him, then she should provide the necessary information. He said that he did not believe her nonsense, that she agreed to pay off his huge debt. The princess said that she was looking for the Nadalin flower. The guy insisted that he had no business with crazy people. I was surprised that she went for the flower from the legends. The girl asked in rage who said that that flower did not really exist. Why is everyone so skeptical? Jade admitted that she could carry out the Empress's orders, but he warned that it was a one-way ticket, that they wanted to remove her from politics or simply kill her. But the girl assured him that everything was completely different. Then the guy admitted that she needed the flower personally. She confirmed. Then he asked the reason, assuming that someone was sick. She confirmed that she was sick.